Hello there. This video is about section 2-8. We'll be talking about percents today and how we can find percents of different numbers and find what percent a number is of another number, and etc. So I'm sure you've seen percents before, and all a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So for example, 25% is the same as 25 out of 100. Okay? I know you've seen these, so we won't spend a whole lot of time here on them, but there are three different things you're going to run into today. And in all three things, you're going to use the same equation. And here's that equation. Okay? Part equals percent times the whole. Now, in previous years, I've taught these using proportions, and this year I've decided to try it with the equation and see if that works better. And we'll talk about how do we know what's the part, what's the percent, and what's the whole. But essentially what you'll be doing is just plugging in different parts of this equation and solving. Now, one important thing to remember is that this percent always has to be as a decimal. Okay, and what I mean by that is, for example, if the percent I was given, let's say, was 50%, I have to change that into a decimal. Now, do you guys remember how to change a percent to a decimal? Hopefully you're saying to me right now that you move the decimal point back 2 spots. So 50% would be the same as 0.50 as a decimal. Okay? So when we use this equation, we always have to make sure that our percent is in decimal form. That's very important. So the first type of problem you will see is where they're wanting you to find the part. Okay, they're wanting you to find a percent of a certain number. So here's what those these problems will look like. It'll say find 20% of a number. Now, the thing that comes after of is always the whole. Okay, and then the percent is easy to find because, well, it typically has a percentage sign after it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take these numbers and plug them into my equation. Now, I don't know what the part is, so I can just call that x. The percent is 20%, but I have to change that into a decimal, so it's going to be 0.2. And then the whole is 60. So essentially I'm doing 0.2 times 60. Okay, does anybody know what 0.2 times 60 is? Hopefully right now you're saying that it's 12, but let's just check to be sure. Yep, I was right, it's 12. So the answer to that one would be 12. And this is how I would show my work. I would write the original problem, label, and then write my equation. Okay, nothing too hard. Let's look at another example of this. Find 210% of 8. Now once again, 8 comes after the of, so I know that's going to be my whole. And then here, this is obviously my percent. So again, when I set up my equation, the part, which I don't know, is the percent, and I have to move it back 2 spots, so 210% is 2.1 times 8. So then I'm going to do 2.1 times 8. And I come up with 16.8. So 16.8 is 210% of 8. One more example here, 4% of 36. Now again, 36 comes after of, so that's the whole. And here's my percent. So I don't know the part. Change this to a decimal, it's going to be 0.04 times 36. So I'm going to find 4% of 36. So I take 0.04 times 36. And I come up with 1.44. So So that's how I master equations, or problems I should say, where I'm trying to find the part. Now let's look at this next kind where we're trying to find the percent. Now these are also easy to recognize because they will say, what percent? So that tells you right away you're trying to find the percent. So percent is going to be X. So what percent of 45 is 35? Now here's the word of again. So hopefully you recognize that this, the number after of, has to be the whole. I don't know the percent, so this has to be part. So I'd have 35 equals the percent, which I don't know, times the whole. Now all I have to do is solve for x. Well, x is being multiplied by 45, so I'm going to divide by 45. So I'm going to do 35 divided by 45, and that is 0.7777, etc. 0.7 repeating. Now, one thing that's important here is I have to change this now back into a percent, because remember that x represents my percent as a decimal. So hopefully you remember that to go from a decimal to a percent, you move it 2 spots to the right. So the percent is actually 77 point, it says round to the nearest tenth, so that would actually round up to an 8. So that would be 77.8%. It's very important that you change it back to a percent. Okay, it will be wrong if you leave it as 0.7 repeating. That's not the same thing. Let's look at another one. 230 is what percent of 200? Now again, I'm looking for the percent, so that's going to be x. After of is 200, so that's going to be the whole. And then this must be the part. So I have 230 equals x times 200. Now once again, x is being multiplied by 200, so to undo that, I'm going to divide by 200. Now 230 divided by 200 is 1.15. Now again, I have to change this into a percent. So that's going to be 115%. So 230 is 115% of 200. One more example here. Once again, I don't know the percent, so that's going to be x. After of is 35, so that's going to be our whole. And then that leaves 7 to be the part. So I have 7 equals x times 35. So then once again I'm going to divide by 35. Now 7 divided by 35 is 1/5, which comes out to be 0.2. Once again I have to change it into a percent. So my answer is 20%. 7 is 20% of 35. Now the third type of problem you're going to see looks like this. It says 38% of what number is 85? Now you'll notice here, after the word of, we have what number. So we don't know that. So the whole is going to be the x this time. Here's my percent over here. Again, I can recognize that pretty easily because of the percent sign. So that means that this has to be the part. So my equation here would be 85 equals 0.38, I have to change it into a decimal, times x. So then I'm going to divide by 0.38 on both sides. So 85 divided by 0.38 is a big number, 223.68, and I have to round to the nearest tenth, so it's going to be 0.7. So 38% of 223.7 is 85. look at another example here. 20 is 0.4% of what number? Okay, so I don't know what comes after of, so that's going to be the whole, that's x. Here's my percent. Here's the part. So in my equation I have 20 equals, now even though this is already a decimal, I still have to move it back 2 spots. So this is 0.004 x. So I'm going to divide by 0.004, divide by 0.004, and 20 divided by 0.004 is 5,000. So 20 is 0.4% of 5,000. One more example to look at. 120% of what number is 90? Now again, I don't know what's after of, so that has to be x. This has to be the part, and then here's my percent. So I have the part 90 equals my percent as a decimal 1.2 times x. So then to solve for x, I divide by 1.2. So 90 divided by 1.2 is 75. So my answer is 75. Okay? Now last but certainly not least is the same thing but in the form of a story problem. Now these come a little bit harder because you don't have your keywords to help you out as often. Sometimes you do. So we have the serving size of a popular orange drink is 12 ounces. The drink is advertised containing 5% orange juice. Now here's my percent. I can find that pretty easily. How many ounces of orange juice are in one serving? So here I have to ask myself, is 12 ounces going to be only part of the drink or the whole drink? And I can see here it's the whole drink. It's the serving size of the drink. I'm wanting to know how much orange juice is in that serving size. So I'm looking for the part. So my equation for this one would be x equals, again my percent as a decimal here would be 0.05, and the whole is 12. So I'm wanting to know what is 5% of 12 ounces, and that will tell me how much orange juice is in the orange drink. So I'm just going to do 0.05 times 12. And that gives me 0.6. So that means there's 0.6 ounces of actual orange juice in the orange drink. Okay? So story problems are very similar, just have to decipher them a little bit more than the other problems. That's all we got for you today, folks. See you tomorrow.